Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. It's a two-part question, and I'm going to take them as two separate parts. Because recreational alcohol and drug use, while it certainly is something that can and does in many cases lead to addiction, it isn't the same as addiction. And so we'll take the two different questions separately. First is dealing with addiction. Alcohol addiction, drug addiction, eating disorders. To the questioner who asked this and who said, I'm trying to overcome this, but it's hard. Yeah, it is hard. Do not feel on any level like you're weak. Do not feel like there is something wrong with you, that somehow you can't beat it. One of the greatest, I think, misservices, injustices that we do in our society is we make people think that it's just a matter of buckling down and you'll kick it. Drug addictions, alcohol addictions, eating disorders, depression, whatever it may be. But this idea that somehow if you're suffering from that you're weak, that there's something wrong with you, that if you just were stronger, somehow you would be able to overcome it. There's a lot of factors that go into addiction, that goes into alcoholism, that goes into drug addiction, that goes into eating disorders. And this is where recovering from them requires more than just setting the mind. The mind is the first step. If you don't set the mind, you will never overcome. You can have all the help in the world, all the facilities in the world. But if the mind isn't set, you'll never be able to overcome it. And in many cases, simply setting the mind isn't quite enough because there's other factors. Addiction actually works chemically in the brain. Now, that's not an excuse by any means. It's just a way of understanding that which is happening is not just about a weakness of mind. There's actually an entire chemical reaction, process, pattern that happens in the brain that makes it more than just a matter of, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to use. We also know that which leads to a lot of addictions, that which leads to eating disorders, in a huge, overwhelming percentage of cases, is trauma. And that's why it's not just about setting the mind. In most cases, again, not all, but a huge percentage of them, there's trauma that needs to be dealt with. There's trauma that needs to be addressed. There's trauma that needs to be worked with. There's a healing within that needs to happen along with setting the mind to, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to use, I'm not going to engage in these behaviors. It's also important to realize that in a lot of cases, that which propels people into addiction, that internal sense that says, I'm suffocating in here, I can't live in here anymore, it is unbearable, in this mind, in this body, in this experience of a jail inside me, that leads people to drink, that leads them to use, whether it's drugs or food. While the solution, the alcohol, the drugs, the food, is certainly not in any way a functional or appropriate solution, that which leads people to that is actually in many cases a spiritual yearning. It's an experience inside that says, this moment, I am suffocating. This moment, in my present circumstance, in my present situation, in this mind, in this body, I want out. I want out. Now, again, of course, using alcohol, using drugs, using food doesn't get you out. All it does is it temporarily, chemically, electrically, numbs you. It chemically, it electrically takes you away from the present moment through artificial means. It's not giving you what you're really looking for. But it's important to recognize that the yearning, the urge of it's suffocating in here, in this mind, in this body, in this role. And this is where, of course, spirituality tells us something very similar, which is, hey, you're not your mind. You're not your body. You're not your present circumstances. You're not your situation. You're not that experience that feels like it is suffocating you. You are the soul. You are the spirit, which is infinite, boundless. Not the body, not the mind, not the role, not the career, not the title, none of that, which, yeah, is pretty suffocating. No wonder you want out. But the alcohol and the drugs and the food don't get you out. They actually just suffocate you even more. Then you wake up in the same situation. But now you're hungover. Now you're coming down. Now you've got toxicity in the body. Now you've got a headache. Now you are suffering in so many other ways. But recognize, again, it bears repeating over and over again, that the solution through alcohol, through drugs, through food is far from efficient, far from functional. Doesn't take you where you want to go. But the urge, that sense of, I want out of this present moment. I want out of that vice I feel like I'm in, of my mind, of the waves of my emotions. That yearning, that urge, is a spiritual quest. Yoga, as is said so beautifully in the Yoga Sutras, is the stilling of the waves of the mind. That's yoga. So, whether we're using drugs, alcohol, or food in a dysfunctional way to bring about a stilling of the mind, whether it's a high, whether it's inebriation, whether it's a carbohydrate overload, whether it's a rush of endorphins, through starvation, through vomiting, through over-exercising. What they all do is they give a temporary respite from the waves of the mind, which Patanjali told us so beautifully is actually what yoga gives us. So spirituality gives us the way of achieving that, of experiencing that, in a way that actually lasts, in a way that's real, in a way that's true, not in a way that's just numbing you or distracting you. So when you suffer from addiction, recognize, A, very likely there is unexamined trauma. Look at it. Open up to it. See it. Heal it. Acknowledge it. Number 2, it doesn't mean you're weak. Number 3, there's a lot of ways to get help. Get help. Reach out. There is nothing to be ashamed of. As a society, we must stop blaming people. We must stop the stigmas so that people can get the help they need. Coming forward and saying, I have a problem, is very brave. It's very courageous. And it's the necessary first step to getting help. Reach out. Whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, whatever it may be, Overeaters Anonymous, there's so many places these days with the internet. You don't even have to leave your home. That being said, once COVID restrictions are over, actually being in people's presence is very healing. So it's great to have an online network of support. But if you can get a physical network, once the restrictions are over, get one. Reach out, get help. Help exists, it's there for you. A beautiful, beautiful dear friend of mine, Tommy Rosen, leads lots of online programs for overcoming addiction. There's so many opportunities. Reach out. You deserve it. You deserve to be free. And you can. But don't feel weak that you can't do it alone. Reach out. And then the second question, connected to that but separate. Being the alcohol and drug use, not necessarily addiction though, but the alcohol and drug use, recreational perhaps, of people in Bollywood. As the question asked, why people who have everything are turning to alcohol and drugs. And it's so interesting because I grew up, as many of you know, in Los Angeles, in a world full of celebrities, in a world full of people who had everything. And I remember when I first came to India, and people thought, oh God, if I could just go to America, could just be like people are on the TV, then I would be happy. And I remember so many people saying, oh, please, send me to America. We see the TV serials. We want to be like that. And I remember explaining to people, and then not only people here, but people all over the world, as I started having the beautiful blessing of being able to teach and to share, saying to people, these people you see on TV in the movies, they are paid huge sums of money to do what? To act happy. Look at the TV serials that you watch. Most of what people have to do on those serials is look happy. They're happy about this, they're happy about that. Maybe there's a little fight happening here and there. Maybe they've got a little dilemma here and there. But most of the serials, people are being paid huge sums of money to look happy. The commercials, they're being paid only to look happy. And it's interesting because what we know psychologically is, if you're speaking the truth, it's very easy. If you really, really, really love chocolate, and somebody sticks a camera in your face and says, okay, tell me how much you love chocolate, you'll be able to do it really easily. But if you, say, hate a vegetable, say you hate bindi, or you hate karela, or whatever it may be, or you hate broccoli, and somebody sticks a camera in your face and says, tell me, convince me how much you love karela, you're going to be like, what are you going to give me? How much are you going to pay me? Like, I hate karela. Why would I say it? And I share this, even though I actually personally love karela, but it's just an example. Because the reason that people have to be paid so much money to look happy is because in many cases, they're not. It's one thing for stunt people to be paid a lot of money. Somebody jumping off a rooftop, doing a triple, quadruple flip, landing on the, arms of the clock. That's something. That's impressive. People doing special things. Acting in a way like people they're really not. Good guys being villains. But simply acting happy? Simply acting like I love chocolate or I love a cup of coffee? Simply acting like I'm really happy hanging out with my friends in a diner? Why do we have to be paid so much money to do that? Because in many cases, these people actually aren't happy. The world that I grew up in was a world full of drug abuse, of alcoholism, of eating disorders, of people on their 4th and 5th marriages. A world of people who have everything, but who clearly are suffering inside. And there's a lot of reasons to examine that, but what's important, the core meaning is, just because you're rich, just because you're famous, just because you've got a big house and lots of cars and lots of followers on social media, those things have nothing to do with happiness. And if recent events in the news in Bollywood haven't convinced you, do some research. Find out. Hollywood, Bollywood, drug abuse, alcoholism, eating disorders, suicide, depression. How many of them are on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicines, sleeping pills? Go backstage at any rock concert. How much drugs, how much alcohol required just to be able to come out on stage and look like we're having a good time? Why? Because there's so much misery. Recreational drug use, alcohol, in Hollywood, in Bollywood, in the movie industry, in the music industry, this isn't new. As I said, this is what I grew up with, but it's been going on long before even I grew up. The alcohol and drug use of actors, actresses, musicians, this is part of the package deal. And it makes you wonder and really think about it. Why is it? And what it makes us realize is a life that is committed and dedicated and focused on making money, superficiality, weighing a certain amount, having the right color skin, the right shade of it, not having a pimple, not having wrinkles, looking exactly right. Not only is that very superficial, but it's also very stressful. I mean, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in a situation where someone said to me, you better lose 15 pounds or you lose your job. Or someone said to me, God, you know, there's wrinkles on your face. Your career's over. Imagine. Imagine how distressing it must be, actually, to be in a world where your acceptance, your fan base, the love that you get, your career, the money you make, is based on things as superficial as the shape of your body, the tone of your skin, what you look like. Because the truth is, we're all getting older every day. Even actors and actresses, musicians. People's looks change. And to live in a world where there has to be such death grip control over the face, the hair, the body, everything, and where you know that all of this acceptance is only based superficially, it would depress me to no end. So it doesn't surprise me that there is the alcohol and drug use. What's important for us, though, is don't judge. Everybody, regardless of who you are, where you are, what you do, how much you make, how you make it, we are all going through our own karmic dramas. We're all fulfilling our own karma in the very best way we can. We all have our own stresses. We all have our own difficulties. We all have our own challenges. And we all deal with them in our own ways. So don't judge. Don't condemn. Don't fall into that sense of building someone up and then taking them down. But do take a lesson, which is for everyone who thought, if I just looked like her, or had money like him, or had muscles like him, then I would be happy. Realize, no, you wouldn't. Because those things are not what bring happiness. And all of the Bollywood and Hollywood musicians, actors, actresses I know who are happy, who don't use alcohol, who don't use drugs, they are the ones whose happiness is not rooted in their profession. They do it. They love it. They're great actors, great actresses, great musicians. But their sense of self is not rooted in that. The ones I know, the friends I have, who don't use alcohol or drugs, but who are famous actors, actresses, musicians, are because their anchoring, their grounding, is not in the parts they play, is not in the money they make, is not in their followers on social media, but it's actually, in most cases, in spirituality. It's in their family, it's in their seva, in their beautiful service work. Yeah, they love acting, but they're not getting that sense of worth from it. They do it because they love it. They're grateful to be able to make a living doing something they love. But they're not anchored and grounded in that superficiality of it. They're anchored and grounded in something much deeper. And so that lesson is the same for all of us. But it's a good reminder all the time that wherever you are, everyone has challenges. Wherever you are, everyone has to dive deeper into the self for that anchoring, for that grounding.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. People sadly have this chasm between spirituality and the physical world. So whether it's the physical body, whether it's science, whether it's medicine, as though somehow we had to choose between being spiritual or being scientific, as though we had to choose between meditation and medication, as though we had to choose between spirit and body. There's no such dichotomy. Spirituality is that which infuses all of our life. It doesn't deny the exciting discoveries of science. It doesn't deny the amazing technology. And if you doubt that, just see how many spiritual leaders are teaching via technology today. Right? We're all using it. The cameras, the wires, the computers. This is all technology. And it's such a great asset for us. So there's no sense of being spiritual means we shun technology or we shun discoveries, we shun science. In the same way, it doesn't mean we shun medicine. The power of prayer, the power of meditation, the power of being in alignment, yoga, union, is that which brings balance back into our system. Our physical system, and of course the system between the body, the mind, the spirit, the body, the mind, the heart. But it does not in any way push away a system of treating aspects of the body. In fact, for things like emergencies, there's no one I know, from enlightened renunciants to the deepest meditators, there's no one I know who, if they fell down and broke their leg, or had a heart attack, or got in a car accident, that they would simply try to meditate away the broken limb, that somehow they would just try to use the power of their mind to reset their bones. Everyone I know would go to a hospital. You start getting into more gray areas when you look at issues of pain, when you look at other chronic illnesses. Some wouldn't use it, many would. To me, I don't think it's unspiritual at all. We have a body. We are spirit, but we have a body. And yes, one of the most beautiful spiritual practices is remembering I'm not the body. It's why we fast. It's why we stay awake all night. It's why we do all of these practices. It's why Puja Swamiji had to stand on one leg for 11 hours a day. It's why you see all sorts of practices that are used to tame the body and to teach us and remind us that we aren't the body. Not to subjugate the body, but just to remind us I'm not the body. But that doesn't mean that when the body is in pain or when the body is sick, that I can't treat it. You should treat it. And if a pain medication removes the pain from your body such that you can sit in meditation without having to use an extraordinary amount of willpower to not think about the pain, if it enables you to get out of your bed, off of your couch, and into the world, where you can connect and be of service and give, if it allows you to get out and enjoy sunsets and take walks, hike in the woods, if it enables you to pick up your children or your grandchildren, or your dog or your cat, or the kids across the street, if it's going to enable you to reconnect with life, take it. Everything, of course, has side effects, and these are things you have to ask your doctor. But there's nothing unspiritual about giving yourself the best chance that you have to connect with the truth of who you are. And if every time you close your eyes, you are so overcome with pain, eyes open, eyes closed, walking, sitting, standing, sleeping, that's not life. And if a simple pain pill can give you life back, by all means take it. And if at some point in your life your dharma is to meditate in a cave, 20 hours a day, months on end, to develop a spiritual power to treat whatever it is that's ailing your body, so be it. Wonderful. God bless you. But in the meantime, there's no reason you have to suffer. And the same, by the way, goes for everything I can think of. Diabetes. I mean, things that are debilitating illnesses. And yes, of course, make lifestyle changes. Eat more healthily, exercise, don't stress, meditate, do yoga. But that's the same no dichotomy. Just because you take the pill doesn't mean I'm not going to also do physical therapy. I'm not going to also cut out foods that are inflammatory and toxics. Doesn't mean that I'm going to not do the things that actually are curing me. But it simply means along the way, I deserve to live. And by the way, there's a lot of people out there with debilitating pain for whom a pain medicine doesn't do anything. So if your issues can be solved by a pill, as simple as a pain medication, consider yourself actually very lucky. But do engage in all of the practices, whether it's acupuncture, whether it's Reiki, whether it's yoga, whatever it may be, that can someday, hopefully, free you from that medicine. In the same way, if you've got diabetes, take the insulin and exercise and eat better and do all the things that eventually, someday, hopefully, will get you off the insulin. But if you die along the way, you lose your chance. So yeah, don't be so hard on yourself. Take the medicine, it's okay.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. When I see the news on TV or social media, it makes me afraid. What do I do? Every time we turn on the news, every time we turn on our social media feed, it is all that. It's fear, 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 disaster, disaster, disaster. And by the way, this isn't just since COVID. Today, the fear, fear, fear is COVID. Or the economy collapsing. But this was a technique. This was a strategy long before COVID. And that's really what it is. It's a strategy. Fear sells. Sensationalism sells. What determines that which comes on your social media feed? An algorithm. A mathematical equation that Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media feed you're on uses, or Google News, whatever we're watching. With so much happening in the world, when I go to Google News, why do I get the 15 or 20 articles that show up? An algorithm. When I open Facebook, why do I get what shows up? An algorithm. An equation. But it's not an equation where the end result is supposed to be truth. So it's not A plus B plus C divided by D equals highest truth. Or A plus C plus D plus divided by F equals inspiration. It's A plus B plus C divided by D equals the likelihood that you will click on it. That's how the equations work. How do they give the news in such a way that you will click on it? How many times have you clicked on a story that had some title that looked so fascinating? Like you couldn't help yourself but click on it. And then you actually get to the article and you realize, this isn't so interesting. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. Well, they clearly had just given a title that they know, due to the PR companies they've hired, works well with the algorithm to get you to click. That is their goal. You should click more. You should stay online more. Why is that their goal? Because the longer you are online, the more advertisements you see. The more advertisements you see, the more money they can get from people who advertise. Or, if it's not necessarily a monetized financial motivation, then the motivation is just you should spend as much eye time on their site as possible. That's what the algorithms are for. So the question is, how did we all agree to become slaves to an algorithm? Somebody writes an equation that says this much fear, this many verbs, this many adjectives in this many words equals high clickability. Fine. But we, with our common sense, with our free will, with our truth of who we are, that oneness with the divine, that creator of our own lives, when and how did we all agree to collectively surrender our free will on the altar of an algorithm? When did we agree? Whatever the algorithm says, we'll do it. But every time you click on that fear-based article, that's what you're doing. You are literally strengthening, empowering that mathematical equation. So in the same way that those of us who are very particular about what we eat don't get forced to eat things we don't want to eat, and those of us who are very particular about not drinking alcohol, for example, there's nothing that you could say in an advertisement to convince me to, try the alcohol or to try the hamburger. I know I don't eat meat. I don't drink alcohol. And my free will, my personal resolve is stronger than anything someone might say to convince me to eat it, or any advertisement that a hamburger company might put out or an alcohol company might put out. And this is true for all of us. That which matters to us, we use our free will for. Why is it then that with our time and our energy and our mental health and peace, we so willingly become slaves? Don't. Take back your time. Take back your focus. Take back your free will. And refuse to click. Just don't click. There are ways to get the news that you need without scrolling through whatever Google News decides to give you. There are ways to see how your friends are doing on social media that doesn't require you to scroll through a news feed of whatever social media decides to give you. Just like you can drive right past the McDonald's and pull in at the health food store and buy what you want to eat. Not just because McDonald's came first, so you went there. Use that same power. Use that same free will. Because your mental health, your peace, is much too valuable to be a slave to someone's algorithm.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. As I've said many times in different occasions, it's not a running away from, it's not a letting go of your duties. It's not a falling back on your duty. It's a recognition of a very clear Dharma. It's a recognition of your purpose, of your meaning. Never should taking sannyas be something that is a failure to fulfill a duty. When I was going to take sannyas, Puja Swamiji made me go back to America and take my parents' blessings. And of course, it never would have been something that I could do if there was even the slightest possibility that my parents wouldn't be able to take care of themselves financially. By God's grace, I was in a situation where I didn't have to work to make money to give them, to support them. But if I were in a situation, I'm an only child, I don't have brothers or sisters. If I were in a situation where my parents were going to be financially dependent on me in their old age, there's no way that he would have given me permission to take sannyas. So, yes, on the one hand, as our duty, as our dharma, when we open ourselves up to the world, service of the world, giving and giving and giving, like the sun, like Mother Ganga to the world, we have to realize our family is also part of the world. There's no teaching that says, thou shalt serve the world, except the people who actually gave you birth. Or thou shalt serve the world, except those who love you the most. That's not a spiritual teaching. And so yes, on the one hand, there's absolutely a responsibility to not run away from one's duty in taking care of family members. And simultaneously, there's a great importance at understanding what that responsibility means. Because everyone, of course, has free will, and everyone, of course, has abilities and make their own decisions. So if it were, for example, your children instead of your parents that you were thinking about, and you had given them an education, given them a great education, given them all of the wonderful opportunities, it's not your duty to stand there and make sure that they make every right decision in their life. you've planted the seeds, you've watered it, you've shined the sun on it. That seed has now blossomed and sprouted. It's doing its thing. And so this is where, even for people who aren't taking sannyas at young ages, when we speak about the ashrams of life, of moving from brahmacharya ashram phase to grihastha ashram phase to vanprastha ashram phase to sannyasa ashram phase, even in what's considered the most normal, standard dharmic life, you're still supposed to move away. You are not supposed to stand there and watch over your children as seeds and your grandchildren as seeds and make sure that they sprout the right way and grow the right type of fruit. You're supposed to be on that vanprastha ashram and sannyasa ashram phase of life anyway. In terms of taking sannyas younger, though, in what would normally be considered the householder phase of life, if you have people who are dependent upon you, young children, elderly parents, who have no other way of taking care of themselves, it's your duty to take care of them. But young children grow. Young children become adults. And they develop the ability to take care of themselves. Whether they're going to do it the way that you think they should or not, that's irrelevant. At that point, you could say that your responsibilities are completed if you're feeling that dharmic pull to take sannyas. If not, by all means, stay and continue to guide them through different phases. But the way that the question was asked, no, it's not your responsibility to make sure that all of your family members have well-paying livelihoods before you can fulfill your dharma of sannyas. You definitely want to make sure not to run out on people who are singularly dependent on you and who have no other way to take care of themselves. Not just that they have gotten habituated to you providing for them because they'd rather not work or they're lazy. That's not your responsibility. But if they're young children or aged parents, then yeah, you have a duty to them. But otherwise, everyone has their own karmic package. And everyone has their own free will and their own path that they have to walk. And it's not your responsibility to be there and make sure that everyone is completely set everywhere they're supposed to be. There's a great expression that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so if you've done your part, leave the rest in God's hands. Have faith. Have faith in their own intellect, their own ability, their own karmic package. And have faith in God. Because you definitely have a responsibility to your own dharma. That's for sure. So you want to be sure to fulfill that before the years of your life run out.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.